Здравствуйте, меня зовут Евгений Соколов, я глава Центра разработки Google в Москве. В России два центра разработки, один в Москве, другой в Санкт-Петербурге. И от имени объединенной команды разработчиков я хочу поприветствовать вас на этом событии. Добро пожаловать! Сегодняшнее событие является глобальным. В этом году оно уже прошло в Токио, в Японии, в Бразилии, в Сан-Паулу. Сюда мы приехали из Мюнхена, сегодня мы в Москве, следующее на очереди Прага. Сегодняшнее событие самое большое, оно проходит уже в течение 3 лет, и сегодняшнее самое большое. За 3 года количество участников увеличилось более чем 3 раза. В этом году мы получили 4000 заявок. Ну вот мы не смогли пригласить всех, потому что этот зал вмещает только вот такое количество людей. Мы надеемся в следующем году пригласить больше. Сегодняшнее событие ваше. Мы будем сегодня говорить о тех темах, которые вы для нас определили. Мы будем говорить о веб-разработке, мы будем говорить об андроиде, облачных вычислениях, социальном вебе и о монетизации. И для начала я хочу сказать, что вот самое главное, Chrome и HTML5 в том числе разрабатывается и здесь, в России. И в Москве, и в Санкт-Петербурге ведется разработка Chrome. В том числе тех фич, о которых мы сегодня будем говорить. Кроме того, в Москве еще и ведутся исследования в области облачных вычислений. И московский офис, и питерский растут. Мы продолжаем, приглашаем новых сотрудников. Если вам интересно заниматься будущим веба, приходите к нам на работу. Московский офис переехал недавно в новое помещение, и в течение следующих 2-3 недель мы хотели бы провести несколько экскурсий. И если вам интересно посмотреть новый офис, который, вероятно, многие люди считают, является лучшим офисом Google вообще во всем мире, приходите к нам. Вот запишитесь этот URL, там форма. Мы, к сожалению, не сможем пригласить всех, но мы постараемся провести как можно больше экскурсий. А теперь давайте вернемся к теме сегодняшнего разговора. И я хочу пригласить на сцену директора по продуктам для разработчиков Эрика Толоме.
Thank you. Добро пожаловать. Thank you. We know your time is precious, so we really appreciate that you chose to spend the day with us here today. I'd like to start by taking a few steps back and looking at where we're coming from. And when I say where we're coming from, I'm not talking about monkeys. Not everyone agrees we're coming from monkeys anyway. I'm talking about computers here, so I mean mainframes. Isn't it impressive to look at the innovation that's happened since mainframes in the world of computing? All these innovations here on screen, combined with rapid increase in CPU speed as well as memory sizes, have created a revolution roughly every 10 years in the way that we develop applications, right? And if you look specifically at the last 3 technologies here on this slide, the web was a revolution, but in the past 2 years, there's been immense acceleration in the richness of the web. It's not a collection of web pages anymore, it's applications. And if you look at 3G, finally, we have good mobile data networks and great devices to take advantage of it. And if you look at the cloud, finally, we can use public shared infrastructure to run our applications. These 3 major technologies are changing rapidly and creating the new revolution that we're all part of. And this will be the theme of this keynote. We will talk about the world of browsers and HTML5. We will talk about cloud computing, and we will talk about mobile and Android specifically. Let's start with browsers and HTML5. On this picture, I've drawn a number of logos that I'm sure you recognize. Microsoft Office, Photoshop, Acrobat Reader, Google, Wikipedia, Facebook, Skype, LinkedIn, etc. These are all the big applications that in the past 20 years have had a very big impact on the world. Do you notice something? If I draw this big dividing line, does it help seeing something here? Most of the major applications before 2004 were desktop-based. And after 2004, they're all web-based. Skype is probably the last application outside of browsers and games that was desktop-based and had a significant impact on the world. And the reason is simple. It's called Ajax. Ajax became widely available in 2004, and applications such as Gmail and Google Maps showed the world and all of us developers that the web didn't need to be just a collection of pages, but could be used for applications. At the same time, it's been frustrating when you write a web application to not be able to do decent graphics and audio and video without proprietary plugins, to do decent 3D graphics, to interact with the hardware of the device. And that's why the community got together and decided to write a new version of HTML5, of HTML called HTML5. At the bottom of the screen here, you have a few of the key capabilities of HTML5 that actually enable graphics and 3D graphics and access to the local file system and basic capabilities you'd expect as a developer. But these capabilities only matter if they're widely available. So let's take a look at how HTML5 support stacks up against the major browsers. And first, let's look at 18 months ago, when the whole conversation around HTML5 really began. And there was some support, but it wasn't good enough. Now, let's fast forward to today. And do you know how this looks today? It's pretty exciting. This is how it looks today. All the major modern open source web browsers now support all these fundamental capabilities. And even Internet Explorer with IE9 has made great progress. And I'm sure you've heard Microsoft's commitment recently towards HTML5. This is really good news. Now, focusing just on video for a second, video is a complex domain. It's not just about tags and HTML5, it's also about codecs. And I just want to tell you something here and remind you first that we got together with other web companies and we announced WebM. WebM was announced a few months ago, and it's a project which aims at creating open formats for web, video, and multimedia. And as part of WebM, we contributed a royalty-free codec of very high quality for online video called VP8. I'm glad to report that there's been great progress on that front. We at Google are very committed to this, and our partners in WebM, in particular our hardware partners, are actually accelerating the roadmap to support WebM and VP8. So you can expect support broadly for this open standard for video to come very soon. The other good news is that if you look at the growth of mobile usage of the internet, it's fueled today by devices, smartphones, that are all HTML5 capable. So everything we talk about now in the world of HTML5 applies not just to desktops, but also to tablets and phones, etc. So that's really good. But enough words. I'd like to be more specific now and show you what you can do with a few lines of code in HTML5. To do this, I'm going to ask Pavel Feldman, a Google software engineer working in our St. Petersburg office on Google Chrome, to join me on stage. Pavel Feldman.
Hi, Rick.
Welcome.
Привет.
And we'll start with graphics. If you remember on the previous pictures, graphics and Canvas in particular, the tag behind 2D graphics, is now widely supported in all the modern browsers. So Pavel, can you give us a couple of examples of what we can do with two-dimensional graphics?
Of course. So we'll start with the canvas. And canvas is an HTML5 element that you're using to control every pixel of your screen, every pixel of a real estate for your element. Within a few lines of HTML and JavaScript, you can achieve exciting capabilities and features. Let me show it on an example. So that's the metrics main theme. It is rendered real time using canvas elements. So it's a single element and a bunch of JavaScript lines. And I can show you that it is live while moving the mouse here. So the screen distorts. The other demo is an application that Gmail engineers here at Google implemented to fight spam. Let me show you how it works. So there's a Gmail spaceship. It's going to fight spam that is incoming into your inboxes. And we have a lot of spam today, so it'll probably take me a while to fight it. Eric?
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to stop you because there's always new spam coming. So this was Canvas, and this is 2D graphics. Of course, in many cases, 2D graphics is enough, but when you're in multimedia or you're doing games, you actually want 3D, three-dimensional graphics. And if you want these to actually work, you need them hardware accelerated. And there's good news there as well. WebGL, which you saw on the previous illustrations as widely available as well, brings that to you. And I'm sure you have some great 3D demos for us.
Of course. So Canvas 3D is based on the WebGL standard. That is an OpenGL ES standard operating OpenGL shaders language. So if you happen to know OpenGL shaders language already, you can jump straight into implementing it in HTML5. So let me show you a few exciting demos in here. This one is a hardware-accelerated rendering of a sphere with images. Let me rotate it. You see how smoothly it rotates. Let me actually increase the amount of images in here to like huge, and it still rotates fairly decent. Now we can look at and see that the frames per second for this scene is 30 frames per second. I can apply different modifications to this scene, and it'll still work perfectly and fast.
Is this all happening in a browser?
Yeah, so let me show you the fish tank thing. The fish tank is a more complex demo that has a really complex scene with 50 or 100 fish. And yes, it is a regular browser. You're seeing it live implemented in plain HTML5.
All this in a browser.
So the last thing that I wanted to show in the 3D world is a space rock with a planet that looks surprisingly like the Earth is being bombed by asteroids. Whoa. And again, it is happening in the browser. Eric?
So that was graphics, and everything we've seen so far is widely available in the latest versions of all the browsers that are popular. What we're going to show now are things that are not yet widely available, but they're coming soon, and they're also very exciting. First, we'll talk about the file system. Up until now, what you could do in a web app to interact with the local file system was fairly limited. There's great news, and Pavel will show us that now, soon, you'll be able to do much more with local files.
Of course. So in the file system, with few lines of code, you can enable drag and drop capabilities. So let me switch to Finder and drop a single image into this box. And you can see that the file data is now available to your browser. We can display it and apply different filters to it. It is also working when you select multiple files. Let me show it to you. And all of them are instantly available to your browser. Now that's the drag files. And one more thing that I wanted to show is access to the entire file system API. I'm clicking a folder here, choosing a folder on your local hard drive. I'll choose desktop. I select it, and my browser gains access to the file system on my hard drive. I can expand folders, select images, display it, get the full access to them. Isn't it exciting?
Pretty cool. We've kept the last bit to what we think is actually the most exciting. You know how manufacturers put more and more components in all these devices you have on your lap or in your pockets. They have accelerometers now. They have location devices. Wouldn't it be nice if you could access all of these straight from HTML5, from your web apps? Well, that's also coming soon. Pavel, show us.
Yes, in fact, you can access those. So we'll start with the speech capabilities, and let me try doing something exciting here. Ехал грека через реку. So it sends my speech to the server and recognizes it. And here you go. It recognizes in Russian and translates. And all of that is available to you today using these lines of code, using the WebKit speech tag and a language specifier to set it to work with Russian. Now, speech is not all. As you know, modern devices, especially mobile devices, have accelerometers, and they can tell you their orientation in this space. So we implemented that in Chrome to show it to you today. So that's a device orientation listener, and if I lift my computer and tilt it a bit, it's going to reflect the changes. It shows you the orientation. Now we can use this API to produce impressive demos, like this one. That's a 3D Chrome icon here, so I can look at it from various angles. And putting all of those together, you could do complex scenes like this. So this one is a video playing within a canvas. And it actually was split into chunks. So again, if I do things like this with my computer, they are going to be jumping. And video is still playing, and it is still consistent. Eric?
And all this is pure HTML,
Of
Canvas,
course, it is in
CD
the browser.
transform, CSS transforms. Thank you. So, we at Google get excited by that sort of technology, and sounds like you guys get excited too. But technology is only half the story, right? You know very well that in a world of hundreds of thousands of applications and millions of websites, discovery, how users actually find your application, is really, really important. You also know that this is actually just the first step. Keeping your users engaged and making sure they discover and rediscover and come back is also really important and hard on the web. And finally, as much as we get excited by technology and writing code, at one point, you guys need financial rewards for writing these apps. The good news is, while this has been hard on the web, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We announced the Chrome Web Store. The Chrome Web Store was designed specifically with these purposes in mind, making it easy for users to discover applications, for you and your applications to engage with users, and giving you the choice of either making applications available for free or charging for applications. We announced, and we have a live developer preview of the Chrome Web Store, and we encourage you to start trying it and writing applications and uploading them to get familiar with the Chrome Web Store. The Chrome Web Store will be live later this year, and there aren't that many days left in the year, in the United States, and it will come a little later to Russia. Why does this matter? Well, if you look at Google Chrome, we announced back in May at Google I/O that we had more than 70 million active users of Google Chrome. And the growth is really strong. That number has continued to grow, in particular in Russia. So that's a lot of users here. That actually wraps up the first part of the keynote. We've talked about how standards were evolving, how the community and us got involved in defining a new version of HTML that enables all this innovation. There will be plenty of sessions throughout the day to learn more about everything you've just seen. Let's move on now to the second part of the keynote about cloud computing, because this is great front-end stuff, but when you write an app, you need a back-end to support all of this. The promise of cloud computing has been that you can use computing without having to worry about hardware and failures and RAM and disk, just like you would easily buy an MP3 player or a digital camera on the web today. You should be able to buy computing. At Google, back in 2008, we launched Google App Engine. Google App Engine makes it really easy and fast to build your application, to manage your application, and to scale your application. When you use Google App Engine, you really just focus on writing code. When you're ready, you basically press the deploy button, and ta-da, you have a live, fully scalable web application serving without having to worry about configuration, maintenance, upgrades, patches, etc. It's been really rewarding for us at Google to see the growth. This is a real graph of the growth of page views on Google App Engine since we launched the product. Today, more than 90,000 developers use App Engine regularly, and every week, 130,000 applications serve more than 5.5 billion page views every week. And what's even better news, and what's really, really rewarding for the App Engine team, is that every day we see new websites, new applications, new businesses emerge around the world and innovate faster on App Engine. And when I say around the world, I really mean it. We have stories from every country. Innovation can happen everywhere now with products like that. I've talked about how you innovate faster with this. The great news when you use the cloud, and in particular App Engine, is that you're also building on a platform that itself innovates very fast. To give you an example, just a few months ago, we launched new functionality, like the namespaces functionality, which gives multi-tenancy capabilities to App Engine. Let me show you now some of the new things that are coming soon in App Engine. Very soon, we'll support full map reduce, so you can do distributed computing directly in App Engine. I see some people going, amen, yes. Data store bulk import and export, so that you can very easily move your data in and out of App Engine. Reserved instances, so you can make sure that requests to your app are served as fast as possible. Background servers will let you run your code in App Engine for as long as you want without hitting the traditional timeouts. The channel API is really exciting. This is going to enable your app to take advantage of browser push and enable a whole new range of ways for your app to interact with your users. And finally, one other major thing that will soon be available on App Engine is native support in App Engine for OpenID and OAuth. These are two important standards for authentication and identity that are really taking a bigger space now in the world of internet that will be natively built into App Engine. At the same time, as we see more and more developers and businesses rely on App Engine, we've realized that new needs arise, particularly when we now see App Engine not used just for external applications, but also for internal IT applications. That's why at Google I/O in May this year, we announced Google App Engine for Business. Google App Engine for Business is very much the same as Google App Engine, same fundamental platform, so make it easy to build, manage, and scale your apps, but it brings a few more things that businesses need. It brings a service level agreement. These are just words on paper, written the way lawyers like words to be written, that give you our well-known commitment for high availability of the service. Professional support is another feature of App Engine for Business, because when your business depends on a platform like this, it's important that you can get in touch with us and know that you will get a response. Hosted SQL is another part of App Engine for Business, because as much as the data store is great for very scalable applications, we recognize that many developers, many of you probably here in the room, are very familiar with SQL or want to take advantage of some of the capabilities of SQL. That's why we've included SQL in App Engine for Business. Secure by default is a feature that ensures that your internal applications that you write for your own employees will be reserved and only accessible by your employees, without you having to worry about authentication and being worried about security. Together with Secure by Default, custom domain, SSL, will ensure that your enterprise data is encrypted all the way from your employees to your internal application on App Engine. And finally, one of the main things App Engine for Business brings to App Engine is an enterprise administration console. Because if you're an IT manager, you probably have tens, hundreds, and sometimes even thousands of applications. So being able to manage all these applications in a central place and enforce policies is important. This is how it looks. We've talked a lot about how cloud computing allows you, developers, businesses, to innovate faster and more. If we try to quantify this, we've asked many IT managers, maybe CIOs. We've also talked to analysts like Gartner and others. And we've asked them, so how much energy, how much time, how much money are companies spending on what we call keeping the lights on? Hardware upgrades, software upgrades, patches, etc. And the answer is consistent. It's typically at least 60%, sometimes all the way to 80%. And that's true across all industries and mostly across all company sizes. Can you imagine if these 60% of money and time and sweat were invested in innovation, in development of new products instead of maintenance? That is the promise of the cloud, and that's why this man is happy. At the same time, typically this man also has one question when we talk about the cloud. Is it ready? Can I really jump on the cloud? What if I'm not happy and I want to go back? Am I locked in? Who in the world of computing can say they've never been locked in by technology that looked awesome initially, and then you start using it and you realize you can't get out? We care a lot about this at Google. That's why one of our fundamental design principles across the company, across our products, and that's particularly true for App Engine, is openness. Whenever we can, wherever possible, we'll always use open standards so that your app, your code, and your data is free to move out if you choose to. We want people to use our products because they're good, not because they're stuck with them. Standards are a great foundation, but we've gone further. We've worked with partners and our development teams to enable cloud portability. And you're probably wondering why you're looking at wine and cheese now. First, it's because I'm French, and this is subliminal advertising for my country's products. But really, it's because it tells a great story. About a year ago, we got together with VMware. VMware had just acquired SpringSource, and VMware and SpringSource are two leading enterprise software companies. And we realized that they had worked on great development tools, and we at Google had worked on great development tools. And separately, these tools were great. Just like wine is quite nice, and cheese is quite nice. But we realized that if you actually combine the two and made them work together, we had something even more powerful. Just like when you eat wine and cheese together, it's a lot better. The tools I'm talking about here are Google Web Toolkit and Spring Roo. Google Web Toolkit is a great tool to develop advanced web-based front ends. And Spring Roo is a great tool to develop enterprise backend. So of course, if you put these two together, you get a really nice development environment to build modern enterprise web-based applications. And that's precisely what we got together. And I'm really happy to tell you that a couple of weeks ago, we made the versions that actually work together and integrate generally available. And to be more specific, we're going to show you demonstrations of this. For this, I'm going to ask Fred Sauer, developer advocate at Google, to come on stage. Fred Sauer.
Eric.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Good? Yes. Now, I wanted to talk to you about cloud computing. It was about 1 year ago that the engineers at Google and the engineers at VMware got together to work on cloud portability. Out of this collaboration came a number of exciting features, including production time monitoring, development time tracing, and integration of our respective Eclipse tools. Now, I could stand here and talk some more about cloud portability, but I think it'd be more fun if I actually showed you what you can do thanks to the amazing integration of Google Web Toolkit and Spring Roo. Spring Roo is a rapid application development environment for Java developers. It lets you get started very quickly and very easily. In fact, what I want to do is show you how to build a complete working application in less than 200 keystrokes. Now, you might be a little bit doubtful, but please stick with me and watch. So I'm going to get started with Roo. Roo is launched from the command line from an empty directory. And Roo is built with high usability in mind. That means it includes tab completion, so you can easily discover mandatory and optional command line arguments. And if you're ever stuck, you just type hint, and Roo will examine the current state of your project and give you a suggestion. So let's do that to get started. Roo tells us it's ready to create a project, and I hit tab, and we get the first argument, top-level package. Let's pick something suitable for an expense tracking application. Some of you might be on a business trip, might have to file some expenses, so this is going to be hopefully useful to you. So here, Roo has just created a Maven skeleton project for us to get started. And I'm not sure what to do next, so let me type hint again. It tells us we should set up our persistence. So let's hit tab, tab again, and it looks like I have two mandatory parameters. I hit tab, and I'm going to go with data nucleus. And as a database, I have several options. I think I'll start with hypersonic in-memory, just for local development. But I can later switch this to Google App Engine, which I will show you, so we can easily deploy it to the cloud. Now, Roo is pulling in the artifacts for the persistence framework that we chose, and is again asking us to type hint. Looks like we're ready to create an entity. We need a class. We can use the tilde to indicate the top-level package that we created earlier. And since we're doing expense reports, we should start with an employee. Now, we've just created a few Java files for us, We type hint, and it looks like we can start creating fields. There are many types of fields supported. I think I'll start with a username, which is a string field. And I hit tab, and I see that there's nothing else to do, but I wonder if maybe there's some optional arguments. So I'll type dash dash and hit tab again, and I see there are many constraints that I can add to this field. So I'll make sure it's not null. And I actually want to ensure that usernames are always at least 3 characters. We can keep going. We can create another field. Let's have a department. And that's because I just created it. Now we need a reference field for the manager. And the manager is another employee. So there we've created our first entity. Let's create the actual expense reports, our second entity. Again, we'll use our tilde to reference the top-level package. Here's our expense report. Our expense report references an employee. And the type is employee. Now, we also need a date. When was this expense report created? There we go. Oh, we need a type. We have 2 choices. Let's use Java util date. Now we just need one more entity, and we'll be ready. We need the actual line item details. These are the expenses. And expenses, of course, have an amount. And we will make this a double. And of course, we need to reference back to the report. So there we go. In just less than 200 keystrokes, I've created a sample application. I have the JPA support enabled, but I've not done anything yet to create a user interface. To do that, I can just type GWT setup, and Ru will pull in the GWT artifacts and create a scaffolding application, a sample application, so we can get started very easily. Let's take a look at that. But before we do that, I want to jump over to our IDE. This is Spring Source Tool Suite based on Eclipse. It's an integrated development environment that shows our tools working really well together. Here, you have the Google plugin for Eclipse, which lets you get started really easily with Google Web Toolkit and App Engine. And we have the Ru shell integrated in the IDE. And we have the development mode plugin from Google Web Toolkit, which lets us easily debug our applications while we're developing them. Now, I could take that project we just created and import it as a standard Maven project, but to save some time, I've already done that here, and I've launched the application, and development mode is giving me a URL. So let me copy that and go over to a web browser and just paste in that URL. Now what you'll see here is the scaffolding application that was created automatically for you in less than 200 keystrokes. Now the development mode is just loading up. There we go. So this is an application we got for free, just by typing. We see that we can drive into the different entities. We have the username field, the department, the manager. We can even create an entity. And let's create one more. So there we have a couple of entities. Now, this application looks really nice, but it's not quite done yet. It was easy for us to get started, but development is not just about getting started, it's about iterating. You want to be able to edit your code, refresh the browser, see your changes, edit and refresh. This is what makes you productive. Now, we could go back to the root command line and continue to make changes, but I actually prefer at this point to go into the IDE and change the files directly. So I'm going to look for the employee class because I realize I've missed something. And let me just zoom in a little bit for you. You see that root automatically created the username and department field for us in the manager field. Why don't we add the field that we're missing? I think we need a phone number. I'm going to zoom back out so you can see the root shell down here is actually listening, watching the files in my project. So when I go up and I save this file, root is actually going to detect the changes that I just made in my IDE and figure out what needs to change. So I'm going to hit save. And you watch the shell at the bottom. So root is making changes to several Java files to keep everything in sync. And then at the very bottom, you see that Eclipse has figured out that the Java source files have changed. And so Eclipse is recompiling my project. And that will just take a moment. There we go. Building. Now, you see here that there's no phone number field, because this was the project that we just created. So all I need to do, and this is the exciting part, I hit refresh, and we have a phone number field. Right there. Now, this application, I think it's time to deploy to the cloud. What I could do is go to here, the command line, and I could just do, actually, sorry, we need to do one thing. We need to reset up our persistence. We'd selected hypersonic in memory. We actually, I'm going to pick data nucleus again. Data nucleus. And then for a database, this time I'm going to choose Google App Engine to make this application cloud ready. It's going to pull in the necessary artifacts for App Engine. I'll just take a moment here. Okay. And now if I wanted to do, I could do a Maven Google App Engine deploy, and this would actually push the application up into the Google Cloud. To save some time, what I did is I took this application, our team did a little bit more work for a couple of days to make it a little bit prettier, and we deployed. And this is what the application looked like after a couple of days of work. We've kind of created some categories here, added some employees, so you can drill down into things. We've added real-time search as you type. You see the highlights? We're also able to drill into the data and make changes. This was actually lunch, not dinner. We can also flip through the data, and you see that even though we have about 6 million records in the database, we can go through the data very, very quickly. Now, I've shown you how you can quickly get started from an empty directory and build the application in fewer than 200 keystrokes. You can build a cloud portable application very easily thanks to the tools that we've provided. So I hope that you download and try Google Web Toolkit together with Spring Roo to build and deploy your own applications to the cloud. Спасибо. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. So you've seen illustrated what we mean by cloud portability. We can deploy to App Engine, but it's a decision you make at the last minute, whether you want to deploy to App Engine or to deploy on-premise or in another cloud. And this wraps up the second part of our keynote on cloud computing. As I said at the beginning, no keynote about the web today would be complete if we did not talk about mobile. There's unprecedented growth of the use of the internet on mobile devices. And a lot of this is fueled by Android. So let's spend the remaining part of the keynote on Android. To do this, I'd like to ask Reto Meyer, developer advocate at Google, to join me on stage. Reto Meyer. Welcome.
Thanks, Eric. Good morning, everyone. I've had the very good fortune to be a developer advocate on the Android team for almost 2 years now. And I really love this job. I think I'm really lucky to have it. And it's not just because I get to play with all the new toys before everyone else does. It's also because I get to work with a team that's really passionate about mobile and really passionate about the future of that. And it's excellent because it's not just our team in Android, but Google in general, which is really sees the importance of mobile. And so as part of that, it means that not just the business decisions, but each of our product decisions also focuses on mobile as a primary part of that experience. We do expect that many of our users will be using these products through mobile phones primarily. So why mobile? Why is mobile so important to Google, and why should it be important to you as developers? It's because mobile is huge. Sorry? Closer. Excellent. Sorry. Can you hear me better, I hope? So, why is mobile so important? It's because it's a huge business. It's a business that is larger than anything else. It's in the high-tech business, there's nothing that comes close. This year, for the first time, more people are going to be accessing the internet via their mobile phones. Should I grab a different microphone? That's the cheapest applause I'll get all day. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me better. So, I was saying that mobile is incredibly important to Google, almost as important as you being able to hear what I say. The reason why is because more people are going to be accessing the internet from mobiles than from desktop computers. And that's already becoming the case now. What's even more impressive than the size of the mobile industry are the growth rates associated with it. What do we mean by that? Let's look at some context. Within the first 4 years of AOL introducing the internet for many Americans, they were able to get 20 million users online. That's a pretty good number. In Japan, Docomo's iMode achieved almost 45 million people in 4 years. Again, that's twice as many. For me personally, and I think for a lot of people, Netscape was really the product which brought many people online for the first time. And they managed to get about 53 million people in under 4 years, which is showing how things have progressed. Now, we all know that the desktop web has set a standard for growth in terms of technology. We all know how quickly the web has developed. If you look at mobile technology, it sets an entirely new standard. Apple's iOS products, the iPhone, the iPad, in less than 3 years, have had 225 million new users online. This is an order of magnitude above the growth of the web in its early days. If we're looking at Android, it's still relatively early days, but we can already see that it's well on its way to being able to create a new standard for what we consider to be success in technology growth. So while we're talking about Android, let's have a look in a little bit more detail. In terms of activations, an activation is every time a new Android device accesses the internet for the first time. So at CES earlier this year in February, we announced 60,000 daily activations. In May, during Google I/O, we were able to announce that this had grown to 100,000 daily activations. Only a month later, thanks to some very impressive new hardware by some of our OEM and carrier partners, this had grown to over 160,000. And a matter of months ago, only last month or the month before, this had grown to over 200,000 daily activations of new Android devices. Now, it doesn't take a maths whiz to calculate that that is a huge number of devices available in the market. So for you as developers, or for us as developers, we can easily see that the market, in terms of the people who can use our products on Android devices, is huge, and that growth rate means that it's going to only become something which is unprecedented. What's really exciting for me as well is to see that we as developers have seen the opportunities here and have started to take advantage. And we can see that this growth rate is very similar. Here, we're looking at the number of apps that are available in the Android market. And again, earlier in this year, at CES, we had 25,000, 30,000 apps. Google I/O, that was up to 50,000. In June, 60. In August, up to 75,000 apps. And only a matter of weeks ago, we were able to announce that there are 100,000 apps available in the Android market. So for those of you in the audience which have put apps in the market, thank you very much for contributing to this. Yeah, give yourselves a clap, please. So where does that put us? It means that we have over 90 exciting Android devices. Everything from things like the Motorola Droid to the tiny Sony Ericsson Mini Pro and the Galaxy Tab, which is the first of the 7-inch Android-compatible devices. We have 21 different manufacturers, 50 countries. It's essentially become devices which are available in a variety of forms in many countries across the world. So it's a huge market for us as developers to be targeting. Since Google I/O, there have been a few new improvements to Android, which I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about. The first of these is, many of them are related to the Android market. The first of these is search suggestions. So with search suggestions, users are able to type in the name of an application, and it will auto-complete the name of those applications to make your apps more discoverable. So this is one of the ways which we're going about trying to make it easier for people to be able to find your apps and use them. In terms of developer support, we've made some significant improvements to the Market Publisher site. One of those is the ability to have all of the data for each of your apps available. So all of the comments which people give and all of the ratings are all now available in one place to cover every language, every country where those apps are available. So it makes it much easier for you to be able to be responsive to user feedback if they're telling you that things need to be changed. What I think sometimes is even more useful than user feedback is data. And so we've also incorporated error reports. So anyone running a Froyo device or newer than that are able to send an error report if your application crashes on their device. And within the Market Publisher site, you're able to see the number of crashes of your application, as well as being able to see the stack trace of those errors. So you're able to see exactly what's going wrong on which devices and use that to improve your apps, make them more reliable, make them more useful for your users. And this is an example of the error reports that you're able to get. So as you can see, it's the full stack trace giving you all the details you need. We've also introduced 2 new APIs related to the Android market. One of those is the Android Market License Verification Service. And what this does is gives you a much more robust mechanism for being able to prevent piracy of your applications. And the way this works is that it will allow you or your app to contact the Android market servers and confirm that your app has been purchased to run on this device. So it's a very robust way of you to be able to prevent piracy of your applications. And that's more important for you in Russia now that, happily, the Android market is available for buyers and sellers. One of the other really exciting APIs, and I think this is a really exciting thing that Android has now introduced, is cloud-to-device messaging. So what this lets you do is send messages directly to a phone from your servers. So if you have a server and you want to send timely information to a particular user, you can use cloud-to-device messaging to do that. So this is the same mechanism that Gmail uses to tell you that you have a new message. And one of the engineers in the London Google office, which is also where I work, developed Chrome to Phone, which lets you send, it's a Chrome extension that lets you send your current URL directly to the phone. We've also made some significant improvements in terms of enterprise support. So for those of you which are building apps for the enterprise market, this should be good news. I'm not going to go into each of the details here because they're much more consumer-facing, but essentially it means that the IT staff in many large organizations are now going to be more comfortable to allow your applications to run within their ecosystem. To wrap up, last time I was here, the question I kept getting asked again and again, when will we be able to buy and sell apps in the Android market? And again I would say, soon, it's coming soon, it's a priority. And this was the map at the time when we were last here. Happily, I can report now that, that you all can buy and sell Android apps in the Android market, both here and in 29 additional countries which were recently added, or 20 additional countries. So there are now 32 seller countries and 29 buyer countries, throughout which anyone in any of those countries with Android phones is able to buy your apps, help you monetize. And helping you monetize your apps and be able to distribute them more broadly is really important to us, and it's one of our priorities. So again, at Google I/O, we did mention that there are more improvements along the lines of the Android market coming. We've got a web-based market which is in the works and is coming soon. Many of you have also seen the gingerbread man has been delivered to the Android building on campus. So there's a lot of exciting new things to come, but unfortunately nothing I can talk about today. So to wrap up, I'm going to invite Eric Ptolemy to come back on stage. Eric Ptolemy.
Thank you. So this wraps up our keynote. You've seen how the web is moving at incredible pace and is a really powerful application development platform for everyone, whether you're a web startup, an ISV, a software as a service vendor, or an IT developer. And the web is based on open technologies. This is really important. No one can say for sure in 5 years which operating system will be the most popular. But we all know that in 5 years, all devices will have a great browser. So choosing the web as a development platform is future-proofing your development and avoiding to tie your destiny to any single company's destiny and desires. Make no mistake, we are living one of those revolutions that we talked about at the beginning of the keynote. This creates immense opportunities for you to be disruptive, to be the ones who will write those leading applications for the future. I hope you are as excited and energized by the web and its future as we are at Google. Many of us came from far, some from the United States, from elsewhere, some from our local offices here in Moscow and St. Petersburg to spend the day with you. And we look forward to the conversations and the innovation you'll bring to the world. Thank you and enjoy the day.